Hey everybody, Todd Orchide here again for our next video in our YouTube series on custom lease agreements. So let's dive into a few important clauses that you might want to include in your custom lease. Let's start off with lawn and exterior maintenance. So, our default is to make tenants responsible for all of the exterior maintenance of the property. But you can see here we've got, that little part in brackets there that says lawn maintenance is a dynamic field in our lease where we can plug in either tenant or owner. So there might be that special circumstance where we want the owner to be responsible for the maintenance, usually because the HOA requires it or something to that effect. But in the vast majority of circumstances, our default is tenant is always responsible for exterior maintenance. And you'll see a detailed list even here in this clause that says all the things that they're responsible for. And yes, you'll see some controversial things. For example, gutters. I know there are a lot of property managers out there who will always tell you, oh, you shouldn't have tenants get up on a ladder. I think this is the craziest thing. I don't know where people got this idea. I've searched high and low to find anywhere where there's been a lawsuit where a property manager or a landlord has lost a lawsuit because a tenant got up on a ladder to change a light bulb or to clean out gutters. I cannot find one. I don't believe there's any concern for this whatsoever, but I will also say if you are concerned about it, that's why you have insurance. So ultimately, owners should not be paying for cleaning out gutters or replacing light bulbs in ceilings or any of that kind of stuff. It's craziness. A tenant occupies a house. They can get on a ladder and clean out the gutters just like any property owner can do. There's no reason to bill this to the landlord. So make it a tenant responsibility. Get them to do this stuff. Only time a landlord should be responsible, like I said, is if there's no other choice. If the HOA requires it, and we have a few cases that we deal with like that where the HOA requires a total lawn care package that includes gutter cleaning, weeding, and all that kind of stuff. If you have to do that, you have to do it. But otherwise, I recommend having it be a tenant responsibility. As always, check with your lawyers. But, that's my view on how this should be done. Next, clogged drains, pipes, and septic clogs. So almost all clogs, let's be honest, are the responsibility of the tenant. They did something they shouldn't have. Usually it's something like flushing, quote unquote, flushable wipes, which we all know aren't really flushable. Even paper towels. I mean, if you flush paper towel down the toilet, even though it's paper, it's pretty durable. It takes a long time for that stuff to dissolve. So, those things are going to clog up, especially a septic system. But I've seen even, G.I. Joes, Barbie dolls, dog toys, just about everything imaginable flush down a toilet. If that happens, that's a tenant responsibility. Landlords shouldn't have to pay for this ever. Always bill that to the tenant. The only exception to this, I would say, is that case where it can clearly be found that this is not something the tenant did, which would be a case like roots growing into a main sewage line. That's something that's not responsible, the tenant's not responsible for clearly, but anything else where it's not that clear, you got to charge it to the tenant. There's just no reason for the homeowner to be responsible for this. And if you've taken our fee maxing course, you know that if we're charging a tenant for a repair bill, we recommend that you're also charging them an admin fee for having to go through the trouble of billing them for that repair bill. So you should be charging them that also. Don't put this on your client's expense ledger. Make this a tenant responsibility to get this done. Mold and mildew. We're all used to getting mold complaints from tenants. They're always saying something is mold when it's almost always not. Put the onus on the tenant, number one, to report these things. So don't let the tenant think that you have a responsibility to go digging around to find mold. Make sure the lease says they need to report it to you if they suspect it. But then make sure that you have sole authority to decide whether you need to hire a mold expert. Just because a tenant says there's mold doesn't mean that you need to jump through all kinds of hoops to get a mold inspection done. Make it your determination with a hold harmless clause that as long as you take reasonable action, then you shouldn't be responsible if it does turn out that there was mold. So let's say a tenant reports that there's some mildew or mold in the bathroom. You send a vendor out, the vendor looks at it, or even you go out. You think it's just mildew, you wipe it off, you put a little bleach on it, you think it's fine. 6 months later, it turns out there was mold behind the wall that you didn't know about. The hold harmless should keep you out of trouble on that. So combine the hold harmless clause here with that to protect you. But the good best practice I recommend on dealing with these mold claims is, if you don't think there's mold at the property and the tenant insists that there is, give the tenant an option. We will go out and inspect for mold with a professional mold inspector. If they find that there needs to be mold remediation work done, we'll pay for the inspection. If they find, on the other hand, that there's really no need for concern here, it's normal mold levels, then you, tenant, are going to have to pay for the inspector to go out there. So, and again, bill them for that bill and for the $25 admin fee or whatever admin fee you're charging for a tenant repair bill. So that will usually get the tenant to second guess, well, do I really think there's a mold issue here, or am I just being a problem tenant because I'm unhappy about something else? Usually it's the latter, and usually that will get them to back off. Next, neighborhood amenities. So, HOA dues, condo board dues are very expensive at a lot of places, and most of that money is usually going towards nice amenities like neighborhood pools, clubhouses, exercise rooms, pickleball courts nowadays. All that stuff is expensive to maintain. The owner is usually paying those HOA dues. He's not getting the benefit, or she isn't getting the benefit of those amenities in that neighborhood. If the tenant wants to get those benefits, the tenant should be paying for those HOA dues. So put a clause into your lease that says, if the tenant wants to get a key to the pool or an access card to the clubhouse or whatever it may be, they first have to pay the HOA dues for the year so that the landlord is reimbursed for that. The tenant shouldn't get free access to neighborhood amenities that cost a lot of money for the owner to pay for. Make sure that the tenant is responsible for that. Windows. It is literally impossible for you to determine who broke a window at a rental property. The tenant can claim the neighbor broke the window. They could say the neighborhood boy came over, a teenager threw a rock through the window and broke it. Some property managers I've heard will still charge this to the owner if a police report was filed, which I think is a terrible idea. Anybody can claim anything to a cop on a police report. All the police officer is going to do is write what the tenant says. So, tenant says neighborhood boy came over, threw a rock through the window. All it is a report. It's not evidence. Unless there's video showing that this actually happened, there's no reason for you to believe it. Anytime there's a broken window at a property, the default should just be the tenant's responsible for paying for it. You should never be charging the owner for this. The tenant was in possession of the property. They were responsible for making sure the window didn't get broken. The window got broken under their watch. They should be charged. Should be that simple. Don't make this complicated. Don't force these bills on your property owner. So that's today's lesson. I know this is the short version. We obviously have a lot more content in our full course on this. The full video for this week's lesson is over an hour long with a lot more details, a lot more information. So check us out at propertymanagerassist.com. If you want to check out the full lesson, sign up to be a PM Assist Insider, and you'll get that full content for just $99 a month. We put out content twice a month, about 2 hours of content a month that you get. But next week, if you just want to get these free videos, we'll be covering things like subletting, periodic inspections, pets, some very hot topic issues in property management. So would encourage you to check out the full paid content. But either way, we will see you in a couple weeks with our next video. Hope you found this useful.